One of the interesting things I get is that some people have never put two and two together, have never considered the relationship between music and music for your health and well-being, even though we all listen to musical sounds in our daily life. And, whether we know it or not, we are strategically using music. So whether someone goes to the gym and they need like an upbeat piece of music to help keep them going, or someone needs to focus on a piece of work and now they're listening to music to help them get into that zone, we're all doing it. But my work is just about explaining why it has a good effect to help them continue that behaviour or to expose them to it.
Good morning, Michelle. It's so great to meet you.
Likewise, how's it going?
Fine, thank you. It's just a rainy and cold Vienna this morning.
Yeah, I think it's been I'm in London. It's been quite rainy over the past week, but it's surprisingly sunny. I don't know if you've ever been to London before. If you're
I
used to
have. Yes,
okay.
I have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're aware of our British weather, so you never know whether it's going to
absolutely.
be
Yeah.
sunny.
I lived in the UK for 14 years, so I understand the
Oh,
weather a little bit
wow.
there.
And
Yes.
whereabouts did you live?
I lived in Windsor, first in Taunton and then in Windsor,
Yeah. Oh,
but
amazing.
close to London. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really long time. I hope you enjoyed it while you were here.
I did. I did enjoy it, but I must say I missed the sun a lot.
Fair enough. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't blame you.
But where did you grow up?
I'm from London, so I've always
Oh, you
been
grew
here.
up there.
Yeah, but I lived in Leeds for 4 years. I'm not sure if you managed to go up the north of England when you were living.
No, I did never.
Yeah,
No.
so Leeds is nice. It's just like a city. I think when you come from London, it's really hard to compare other cities. So if you like, I guess, smaller and more quiet places, then Leeds is ideal for you.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, otherwise it's quite nice. So
But you
yeah.
went and studied there.
Yeah, so I went to do my PhD in Leeds. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have had a reason to go and
Oh,
move.
okay.
It's just the person I wanted to work with. She was based at the University of Leeds. So I basically would go wherever. If she was in Australia, I'd go to Australia to work with
Oh,
her.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
But
So
that's always interesting for me where and even if I speak to musicians, like opera singers or pianists, they talk about or they always mention this teacher that they wanted to study with and they would move wherever this teacher is.
yeah, exactly. And I think I mean, I guess mine was more so from an academic perspective, but I guess when
Okay.
you know that there's someone who is an expert in your field or what you're interested in, of course, you would
Mm.
love to have the chance or the opportunity to work with them or work under their
Yeah.
supervision. So, yeah, I guess maybe there are similarities across my experience and also with those who are musicians and wanting to work with other musicians too.
So, how did you get into music psychology? Did you play an instrument as a child? Were you a musician first?
Yeah, so I've always been musically inclined. That's how I
Okay.
describe myself. And I guess it depends how you define musician. So I DJ but I haven't played a traditional musical
Oh,
instrument.
okay.
But
Yeah.
the way I DJ, I would say that I used like a DJ deck as an instrument in the same way that a guitarist would use a guitar. So I'd always loved music. I grew up in a very musical household. There was always music around, playing in the house from both my dad and my brother. So from a young age, I guess, yeah, I was exposed to it. And then being Nigerian, music is a really big part of our culture. So I took a really big liking into it through that. And then yeah, the funny thing is, when I was at school, I loved music, and we would have like end of year exams, and I would always get my highest grade in music. But then when it came to choosing our GCSE options, I guess from the age of 14 onwards, I wasn't allowed to take music because I didn't play a musical instrument.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I mean, I started DJing when I was 18, but I guess even back then that wouldn't have been viewed as a musical instrument. But yes, so that was very strange, and I think maybe I mean, this was a while ago, so hopefully as time has gone on, people are viewing what is classed as a musical instrument differently and are more lenient on who can take music, because yeah, it was very strange that I got my highest grades in music, but I couldn't pursue it any further. So it was always just a hobby, to be honest. And then, yeah, I went to university and I studied psychology at undergrad, and then I just kind of fell into DJing from there, to be honest. So
So DJing from university, you did that?
yes, from when I was 18.
Okay. And you studied not music psychology, but just normal psychology. I would say.
So I did psychology at undergraduate level, and then in the third year of my degree, we got to choose our modules, and there was one module that was all about the psychological approaches to music, and I think it was
Oh,
like
okay.
I had like my eyes lit up, and I was
Yes.
like, wow, I never knew it
Yeah.
existed, and that there was the opportunity to combine the two together. So I took the module and I loved it, and then from there, I became really interested in music therapy actually. So initially, I was looking for masters that specifically focused on music therapy because I was very passionate about how can we strategically use music in our daily lives, and especially in relation to health. But a requirement of all of these master's degrees was that you had to play a musical instrument and be a specific grade. And of course, I didn't fit that. So it's
Oh,
like I had all these blockers because I didn't
yes.
play a traditional musical instrument. But then I found a master's course, which was actually at my present university and was funnily enough run by my tutor, but I had no idea it existed. And it basically looked at music psychology and neuroscience, but it covered like the whole, I guess, the whole field as opposed to just focusing on music therapy. And yeah, so I did that as my master's, and then I ended up doing a PhD in music psychology, partly for fun, if I'm honest. Like I love studying, I love learning, and I love research, and also because I didn't want to go straight into a job. So
Oh, okay.
it was a nice chance for me to like continue exploring like what I'd like to do, and also take a bit more time to think carefully about that.
Mm. But I'm thinking, you talk about your parents that came from Nigeria,
Yeah.
and Africa is known for the music, for the cultural music, for all those. It's almost natural. It almost comes natural in communities. And I spoke to a dancer from South Africa once, and he said that in these communities in Africa, music is such a huge part, and dancing is such a huge part of everything, of all celebrations, funerals and weddings and joy and so on. So, can you appreciate these roots that you have? I mean, do you sometimes delve into that as well?
Yeah, so I love Nigerian music. Of course, I'm British, but I see myself
Yes.
as Nigerian first, and I'm very much into my culture, and a lot of that is through the music. And so, yeah, I love Nigerian music. I listen to it all the time. My family are really big on parties and celebrations, and of course, I DJ at the parties.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I DJ. My cousin also DJs too. So we're the ones who are in charge of the music and,
Mm.
excuse me, sorry, in charge of, setting the vibe and making sure that everyone is enjoying themselves that way. And also because I didn't grow up, so my first language is English, and I wasn't taught my mother tongue, but there was a period where I was listening to a lot of Nigerian Afrobeats, and that was sort of helping me in my learning of the language, basically. So like it's
Oh,
multi-purpose.
okay. Yeah.
There are entertainment purposes, but also good for helping you understand or like better understand the language too for
Yeah.
those who are interested in learning. But I think like when you listen to a lot of Nigerian music tends to be like there are a lot of drums and percussive elements, and it's sort of you can't help but move to it when you listen to it. It's very infectious, and I love that, and I love how it has that effect on people, and whether you understand the language or not, especially with how popular Afrobeats is now, and how people are, of course, listening and singing along to music in languages that they don't even know, which is amazing. And yeah, it's a universal response in that way.
And what this dancer also said is that African music is very grounding. It's
Mm.
very, very much there, and like you say, the drums and everything. I don't know how to explain it, but it's almost like you can't help moving to it.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. And I think
Mm,
that's so special. Maybe
exactly.
I'm being biased because of my background, but I do think it's
Mm.
how your body literally can't help but move to a specific sound. And I think that's amazing. And it's also fun. It's also really fun.
Exactly. Yeah. So I got sidetracked now, but I got, but it's so interesting for me because I'm also from South Africa. So, and I've
Yeah.
been talking to a lot of musicians from Nigeria or artists from Nigeria, from Kenya, from all over Africa, and I find it so beautiful that all these natural talents exist, you know, and like I said, that like the dance talked about the music. So, but anyway, so you got into DJing, and from and your when you finished your studies, tell me about the Kinos Studios. How did you start that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and I will say that my career journey is not linear. At the
Okay,
start,
but
I
that's
will mention that.
interesting.
So there's like bits and bobs, but we've landed where we are now. So I guess when I was doing my PhD, I was still doing the DJing. I did radio too and worked as a freelance music journalist. So music was always there, both in the academic setting, but also in terms of like, I guess, hobbies or extracurricular. And then when I was doing my PhD, of course, I loved research and I loved being in this academic setting. I love going to conferences, but I was really interested in how are we taking our research a step further? Of course, we're publishing our research in papers and education and introducing people to what we find is important, but how are we making real world impact? And I think for various reasons, which I won't delve into right now, there seems to be less of a spotlight on making real world impact. And so that was always at the back of my mind when I was doing my PhD. And I tried to get experience working on a few like industry academic collaborative projects. So for me to understand like why industry partners will come to seek out collaborations with academics and to see how that union would work. And so I finished my PhD, and initially I was going to go down the traditional academic route and just try and work my way up basically. But I decided, you know what, I want to explore what the industry is like and what opportunities are available, but specifically in relation to research. So then I ended up working in venture capital. I'm not sure if you're too familiar with that space.
No.
It's basically all about investing in companies. Like a way I describe it is imagine you are the founder of Uber, for example, at the very early days of Uber, and you need some investment to help your company flourish, etc. You might go and seek out investment from a venture capital firm. And so, say, for example, I'm the VC firm, I would give you money to help your company grow.
Okay.
And in exchange, I'd own a
Yeah.
percentage of your company, basically. So I went to work in that space, which is super random. I also had,
Yes.
yeah, no idea what VC was before I went into it, but I worked for a very interesting VC firm called Zinc. And what they do, or at the time, they would run accelerator programs where founders can come on a program, um, meet a co-founder, build a business from scratch, and then if that VC liked them, they would invest in them. But what that VC was really big on was extracting academic and research talent and inserting them into this whole VC and startup world. So they wanted researchers to work with founders to help build evidence-based businesses, essentially. And the program that I was working on there was all around mental health businesses, and my PhD research was about music and mental health. So I went and worked with them, and it was a way for me to understand how my skills could be transferable because it sounds really silly, but when you're in academia, you don't know, or I guess a lot of people just see themselves as I know how to research, I know how to write papers, and I know how to conduct
Yes.
studies. But there are so many skills that come along with that, like incredible project management skills, very good at logistics, very good at engaging with people, good stakeholder relationship skills and stuff like that. So, yeah, working at Zinc was a way for me to essentially use those skills in a different setting, and for me to understand how it can be applied in that way, and to know that I'm not just a researcher, I can go beyond that essentially. And working with those founders and being in a startup environment was incredibly chaotic and very different to what I was used to in the academic world, which was very slow. And to be honest, I felt like every day I was having an adrenaline rush. It was very exciting,
Really?
and learning so much from there. And then, long story short, I was with them for I had like a consult with them for a year, and then I decided I wanted to work for a music and health startup because it aligned with my research, but in the same research consultant capacity. And then, long story short, I got another VC job. I met my old boss, and she really liked me. She offered me a job. And so, yeah, I was just, I guess it's that experience of coming from the academic world, then being inserted within the VC space, within the startup space, and seeing innovation happen really quickly. Seeing real world impact happen at a larger scale and at a quicker scale was really exciting for me. And I think as I was going through working those jobs and having those experiences, I was trying to put the puzzles together, the pieces together, and see what I could make from my background, basically, what I could do based on my research and how I could create something with that. And so that essentially led me to Kinos Studio, and which is a research-led music psychology consultancy, and where we work with teams, brands, spaces, and startups to use music to enhance well-being, connection, and impact based on psychology. So essentially, the work at Kinos is we work on music-based projects and bring in a scientific angle so that it's like grounded on a scientific framework or grounded in research, basically. And the whole idea is to bridge this gap between academic research and real world application within the space of music psychology.
Wow. Michelle, I tell you, this is amazing.
Yeah, so
I'm just thinking now, but from academia, getting into a job like that, must have been also, I mean, that takes also a lot of guts, because it's completely two different worlds.
It is two different worlds, but I'm a big believer of taking risks in life, because if you don't try, you never know what will happen. And of course, it was incredibly scary because I'd only ever known academia. I didn't take breaks in between my degrees. So one, having to leave the university setting, and two, having to understand what it's like in the working world, because I got my first proper job when I was 27, which is most people start very early. So it was definitely like a shock to the system for various things. But I love learning, and I love being, I like to use a description. I love being a baby and not knowing anything, and sort of working my way up and learning from the ground up and stuff like that. So
but what a great quality and outlook, that you have. But I love also the fact that you understood that the research, because there's so much research, and that's what I'm always wondering about, is if we think of the importance of art, and we think of the importance of art in education, and all the research is already there. And if I talk to neuroscientists about the impact of art on the brain, then you think, why are we still not so much aware of it? It's there on the papers, it's the research being done, but the schools still don't implement it, or we don't understand the impact of it. And even parents, I think if parents really knew the positives and like you say, the transferable skills that you acquire from pursuing an art form or music or learning an instrument, that they would actually push more for that in schools.
Yeah, definitely. And it's an important point you raise. And I guess part of my work too is about educating people about the power of music based on research. But I think we need to get to a point where people can understand the value of music and of arts within those settings, and then it will change their mindset towards it. I did like to think that during COVID, during lockdown, of course, a lot of people turned to music or to arts-based activities, especially to help fight loneliness. And I feel like there was a point when people, I don't know if there was like a slight shift, or people are becoming more aware of how these art-based activities can be quite beneficial in serious settings. But then, I don't know, I feel like we've just gone backwards. And especially, I know in the UK at least, music and music education is still not really deemed as valuable. There are universities that they're closing their whole music departments down. Like there was a University of Nottingham recently announced closing both their languages and music department, if I'm correct. And again, it's a case of people not understanding actually the negative impact of that, but also not really understanding why it's so important to have musicians or artists or arts-based activities available to us, and that therefore for us to engage in. Because if you think about it this way, if there were no artists or creators, the world would be so boring. Like, what would people do in their spare time? They wouldn't go to concerts. There'll be no concerts to go to. There'll be no museums to go to. Can go to poetry nights or whatever else they engage in. So it would be, yeah, it would be very boring.
Yeah, and do you think what I also found is that if you learn an instrument, you don't necessarily have to become a musician, but you are then you have this love for the instrument or the appreciation for the instrument or even the art form that you're pursuing. You don't have to become the artist, but you'll be the audience, or you'll be the one that goes to the art museum or to the art exhibitions. So we are educating not only to have professional artists then, but you educating the audience, and you also you're also creating an appreciation for the art forms.
Exactly. No, you're completely correct in that way. And I think, yeah, like humans, we are creative. Like
Exactly.
naturally,
Yeah.
we are all creative, and it's so important to have that space to engage with, whether you become an artist or not, or whether it's just
Yeah.
for fun. Like it's so important to help us keep going, to add some light into our life as well, and to also connect with one another.
I actually did an interview with a guy who reproduced the lyra, the ancient Greek lyra,
Mm.
and they're building lyras now, and people can learn to play the lyra again. And he's told me that in the research that they've done, the lyra was so part of the education system those days in ancient Greek that every child used to play the lyra, and if you didn't play the lyra, then you were seen as uneducated.
Mm.
And yeah, so and I found that so interesting that those at those times,
Mhm.
it was so important. Music was seen as such an important part of education.
Yeah, and I guess it goes back to the point I made again as to how and who places a value on music
Yeah.
or all these activities. And if it's seen as valuable, then they would perceive it in that way, and they would make sure to incorporate it in education settings or wherever else that they would deem it useful or valuable.
So tell me about in the therapy, in the music therapy, how do you use music?
So I will say, just to distinguish, I don't do music therapy because I'm not
Oh, I
trained as
see.
a music
Okay.
therapist. Yeah, no, that's okay. I think whenever people look at, I guess, music for healing or for health and well-being, music therapy is the first term that comes to mind. But there are various ways in which you can use music. But I see myself, I'm an educator and a researcher. And so what I do is I will host workshops that basically educate people about the power of music and why it can be helpful for you. And then I would play an ambient DJ set. I would focus on relaxing and calming music as a way for them to experience, I guess, my teachings, but also to experience the effects of music, fingers crossed, impacting them in a positive way. And I do those settings. I do those workshops in different settings, in corporate spaces for employee well-being, especially those who are trying to look at, I guess, different ways of or creating different type of activities for the employees that isn't just, yoga or the
Oh,
traditional
yes.
activities that they focus on. And also work with private members clubs and hotels to host sessions for their guests there. So it's all about educating people about the power of music. And then I also sit on a board called the Music for Health and Wellbeing Initiative. That's part of the Global Wellness Institute. And it's made up of 7 members we have an assistant professor of music therapy. We have me, who sort of sits in between academia and the industry. We have some startup founders and some people who work at record labels. And basically, we all work within the space of music for health and wellbeing. And the main purpose of our board is to set guidelines for anyone working in this space of what to do in the right way. And especially a key piece of work we're focusing on is terminology and being able to distinguish between the correct terminology, because there's music therapy, there's sound healing, there's sound baths, there are deep listening sessions, and just for clarity, but also for safety purposes too. So love spreading the word about why and how music can be good for your health and well-being. Partly because of obviously my background, my research background, but also because I implement that in my life too, and I want others to have the same effects that I have.
And are people very changed by that? You know, if you do a workshop like that, do people really think, hey, yeah, I understand why this is so important?
Yes, 100%. And I get that every single time, which is always so exciting for me. One of the interesting things I get is that some people have never put two and two together, have never considered the relationship between music and music for your health and well-being, even though we all listen to musical sounds in our daily life. And, you know, whether we know it or not, we are strategically using music. So whether someone goes to the gym and they need like an upbeat piece of music to help keep them going, or someone needs to focus on a piece of work and now they're listening to music to help them get into that zone, we're all doing it. But my work is just about explaining why it has a good effect to help them continue that behaviour or to expose them to it. But some responses that I've loved, I went to... I did one of my workshops at a conference in Warwickshire, and this person wrote a whole poem during the listening part of it, because he was so overwhelmed by the music he heard that it put him in a zone, and he wrote a poem, and I very kindly asked him to read the poem out. It was really beautiful, and he spoke about all the different images that the music had created for him. He'd never really encountered ambient music before, so I think it was his first time experiencing a very calming, a very slow, relaxing type of immersive sound, if you want to describe it. And then I get people coming up to me and being like, wow, like you've changed my whole trajectory about how to view music, which is really special. And people just saying that like they've been having a really bad time in life, and coming to my sessions have helped them feel much better emotionally and help them think about how to consider implementing music or changing their daily habits, their daily music listening habits, to reach the goals or reach reach the feelings that they had during my session. So there are all sorts of things, but I think for me the most exciting thing is when I introduce someone to it, because I've never come across this before, whereas this is my whole life. So it's very interesting in that way, and it's always special for me to be able to see the impact of music in my face, in real world impact, basically. So
the skills that you acquired from DJing, that's also now applicable then?
Oh, yeah. So actually, I forgot to mention the way, I know we spoke a bit about how I got into music psychology through my degree, but before that, I noticed that when I was DJing in clubs and at parties, I was using stuff I'd learned from my degree to help inform my selection style, and to also help inform my mixing style. And a lot of DJing for me anyway, it's like a feedback loop. I play a song, I observe how my crowd is responding to it. That would direct the next song I would play, or also direct how I drop that song in as well, to help elicit the most impactful response from them, etc. So yeah, I guess from there, having that experience of already pulling or taking bits from my degree and applying it to my DJing, and then obviously going on to study music psychology, it's completely directed how I DJ, how I mix now. I had something, I've lost my train of thought.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I was going to, but yeah, so basically, yeah, my DJing, and is informed by the research that I've done, but also by my observations of people in the crowd. So it's kind of like mini studies. I would play a song and I would observe how people respond to it, and I know if I'm playing. If I have another set, I know what songs work well, what songs don't work well. Of course, the crowd is dependent on the crowd too, but generally you can tell, at least from my experience, what is going to work well for people or not.
And your music taste yourself, do you have a wide variety of things
Oh,
that you listen
yeah.
to? Oh,
Yeah,
really?
anything and everything
Oh,
basically. Yeah.
is it?
'Cause, yeah, music is like I don't like to limit myself, and I think because I guess if I look at when I was younger in the house, I was exposed to a lot of Nigerian music, but also a lot of Congolese and Ivorian music. We don't have family there, but my dad was always interested in that sort of style. And then my brother would listen to R&B, he'd listen to a lot of Caribbean music. So already having quite a variety at home. Then at school, at the school age, I was really into, I loved pop, I loved rock music, I loved indie music. So from a younger age, I was already exposed to quite a variety of styles. And then I think I got to a point when I was about 16 or 17, and I wanted to know where are all the music artists who aren't in like the top 10 or the mainstream charts. And I think around that time, I don't know when SoundCloud had started, but I then started diving into the world of SoundCloud and being able to explore all these underground artists, then that opened me up to all sorts of different genres. And so when I started DJing, I was mostly interested in a lot of club and dance music and experimental music, very fast, upbeat sort of sounds. And then now I still play that, but I also play ambient music. I would DJ at private parties, so I'd play whatever I'm requested to play, and then I would listen to whatever music based on my mood or how I'm feeling. So,
But how amazing that you and that's so inquisitive also
mm,
to to find other, because I speak to also a lot of singer-songwriters that's not necessarily, in the top 10 of the charts.
yeah,
But I think the music is so beautiful. The lyrics are so beautiful.
yeah.
And then I'm so happy that I found them.
Exactly, yeah. And so I sort of, yeah, I love SoundCloud and I love Bandcamp as a way to explore different artists and artists that might not be pushed in on the radio or in the mainstream spaces. So
But tell me, Michelle, what are the wishes for the future? What is the dream?
what is the dream? I love that question because I'm a planner and I work
Oh,
backwards.
okay.
So I already know my dream, but I'm
Yeah.
only sharing bits at the moment. But I'm essentially building an empire with Kinos Studio.
Mm.
There'll be more coming out on the different branches next year the different projects I'm working on. But my whole idea, of course, is to bridge this gap between academic research and real world application. But actually, I'm also interested in how to get academics ready for the real world. Because when I was, at least
Oh,
when I was
yes.
studying, I only ever knew one path, and that was to go down the academic route. And most people end up doing that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's so challenging to find a job within academia now. And music psychology is a very niche field, so there aren't that many jobs available. But the interest in music psychology is growing, so there are more people studying it to PhD level, but there aren't that many opportunities existing when they finish. So I'm really big on how to create these opportunities for those people who were in my situation, because I wish I would have had that experience. So part of this, if I'm trying to be careful of what I say, so I don't say too much, but
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking at an educational branch of how to get academics ready. Also at a more like a heavily innovation focused branch. So, how to turn academic ideas into actual products and services. And of course, the consultancy is there, but that is essentially a foundation for me to grow the different, I guess, pillars of my empire that I'm
Yes.
building. But the overall aim is, yeah, to create these opportunities for other music psychologists or academics who are considering entering the real world. Not that academia isn't the real, but entering the
No,
industry.
I understand what, yeah.
Yeah,
No, I
yeah.
understand what you need. I mean, my daughter's doing a master's degree in dance science, and I know we talk,
Oh,
yeah, and we talk about this a lot, where she says, it's that transition that she'll have to make when she finished her studies to what,
exactly.
to where.
Exactly.
And I can understand that, what you're saying, you need that sort of transition from, okay, I've got all this information to how to apply it and where to go to.
Exactly, yeah. And I feel like there still isn't enough support available for people, um, especially from the university side. And I think if I had known what I know now, having been in the industry, like I love cold calling people because a lot of people,
Really?
yeah, you'd be surprised how helpful and how kind people are. And I always believe in if you don't try, if you don't ask, you won't get. And before academic me I would never message someone out of the blue who I don't know. But now like I'm more I know all that stuff now from my experience of working within VC and within startups. And so yeah, I just want to allow people to understand how like what they can do, how their skills can be transferable, and that they are so valuable. I think a lot of academics will underestimate how valuable they are seen and perceived within industry settings.
I think this is wonderful. And I think this will also be to the advantage also, because I'm very much focused also on how the education system, implement music and all forms of art in the education system. And I think this is what's necessary. Also that you find people who are willing to do that, or who are willing to use that information and approach the education system or people involved in that.
Exactly. No, that's so true. I agree.
But this was so great to talk to you, Michelle.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah,
so
I'm really
lovely.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
your spirit, your energy is such a cliche, but your spirit, the way and how you approach. And I will always think now of how you said you like to be like a baby who wants to learn. So.
No, definitely, yeah, because I think like it sounds so cliche, but life is so short, and I think like learning keeps things. It keeps you excited, it keeps you switched on, and it keeps you going, I think. And it helps you progress too. So
absolutely, yeah. So all the best with the great work you're doing.
Thank
and
you.
I think this is wonderful, and all the best with your empire.
Thank you so much. It's been so lovely speaking to you this morning. Thank you for having me on.
It's a great pleasure.